Welcome to another edition of Cattle Call. I'm Susan Littlefield on the Rural Radio Network. Today we're broadcasting at the Gateway Farm Expo, which is underway in Kearney. Well, can the market hold? We've had some steady numbers generally, and we know that there's been some decent rains happening for many of our folks looking to put those cows out. We're going to talk about what's happening with that, boxed beef, and a lot more today as Brad Kooima joins us. And I should say an award-winning Brad Kooima, because our program, Cattle Call, took third in the nation when it came to market videos. So thanks, Brad.
I think that's on you.
Oh.
No, well, that's cool. Congratulations.
Yes, and congratulations back to you. It's a great teamwork we have going on.
Well, you're easy to visit with. I've said that many times. I enjoy this a lot, more than most. And you ask good questions, which helps, because it's not easy to make an old guy look good on a deal like that.
Well,
I got a face made for radio, so.
Yeah, me too. Let's talk about these markets. I mean, generally we've seen kind of a steady type of trade midweek. Is that what we're going to see going into a cattle on feed report that's due out on Friday?
I think that's a great place to start. So, the market still in some ways is what happens as compared to expectations. I think, whether it's a cattle on feed report on Friday or whether it's we come in here Monday morning and go like, well, let's see, cash was lower last week. Cash was lower the week before that. It's the second or third week in November, and we always go lower this time of year, blah, blah, blah. You get all that Thanksgiving stuff. Spoiler alert, some people are going to eat turkey next Thursday. Just they do every year. I'm trying to be sarcastic here, but you have that seasonality, and so I go with this week. I'm going with the what if. I kind of started this way Monday morning because it felt to me like we maybe had these Packers a little closer to the knife. I'm encouraged by the big kills that we're seeing. By the way, it's 127,000 today. That maybe we were going to stop the bleeding on this cash cattle deal, and so there are some early indications that it indeed is the case. There are some bids here that have been floated at 185, which is what we got Friday. We're passing it. I'm hoping for a late week trade, which usually means that we got the Packer coming our way. So I haven't given up on the idea that the North at least is going to be a little bit higher. And the South, they've actually taken over some leadership here. I think that they'll probably be the ones that are higher first, because that appears to be kind of the direction that some of these cattle have been moving, Susan, for sure.
So you talk about the South, and I know that they were waiting and needing some much needed rain for these cows, which get the rain means hopefully less has to go to the sale barn.
Well, exactly. And I guess let's transition into that, like trying to understand a little bit of this last rally that we've had. I think started over here with that feeder cattle information. Big rain in the plains, Kansas, Texas, Oklahoma through there, desperately needed. The worry was here that we were going to be able to put these calves out to graze out wheat and or just regular pasture, which was going to kind of change up the timing a little bit of those placements. Now that they've had a lot of moisture, that's rallied the feeder cattle market. That's made people want to buy the feeder cattle. That's slowed down this the timing of the movement in case they would have had to move early because there wasn't enough grass and or wheat to graze. So there's all of that, that played into it. Some of these feeder cattle futures have had a $10 rally, 4 days. And anybody that's been to a sale barn will tell you just how smoky this cash feeder market is. So that certainly is part of it. And I think that was maybe the biggest catalyst. If you look at a feeder cattle chart, they look spectacular on a chart. The live cattle look better because December cattle have come back and got above that gap that we left 2 Fridays ago. You remember that sharply lower day when boxes were $6 lower. We've recaptured all of that now, which is a good sign. But the feeder cattle, old guys in the room always say feeders are the leaders. So we'll see. That was a great trade here that we've had the last 2 weeks, but especially the last 4 days.
If anybody's more in touch with what happens in these markets, it's you. And having some conversation with some cattle guys over the last couple of days, they think that there's less heifers that are going into the sale barn rotation, which means into the feedlots. I think there's some optimism and hope that now we're starting into this rebuilding process, which is something we're not going to really see until probably a year and a half out. What is your takeaway?
It's funny that you asked me that. I have an intern that comes in here from the local college, and she's really good. Her and I tried to dig a deep dive into that data. It's difficult and cumbersome to try to come up with, but I'm working on it. We got cheated out of the July inventory report, which have been helpful. The last cattle on feed report was a quarterly report, so we did get a percentage of steers and heifers that got placed, and you did see a downtick in the heifers as a percentage of steers, but it was slight. It's below last year, but barely, and that was a record in the year before, which was also a record up until when we broke it. So I would guess that the January inventory report will be very enlightening. I can't wait to see it. We'll also get the quarterly report. So right now, September, Nov, right? I mean, that's kind of your traditional northern placement time period. I've asked that question to anybody that'll stand still and listen to me ask it. Are you saving heifers or are you not? And I would say it's regionally, the Dakotas, I would get a yes. Wyoming, I get a no. The whole state was on fire for a while. It's dry there yet. Okay. Maybe not the whole state, but okay. I'm trying to be entertaining. Montana is mixed, big state, but also areas there that variable conditions, whether they had enough rain. South was dry, but the rain is certainly a big influencer. But the question, when I ask that question, the answer I get over and over and over from these guys are like, I can't afford not to sell them. If you're dumb enough to give me that kind of a price for a heifer, I'm going to sell it. And, or I'm 77 years old. I'm not going to mess with a first calf heifer. So I think that we're going to start the rebuilding phase, but it's going to be the slowest one ever. And just like this liquidation phase took forever. It was almost a double cycle. It was almost 11 years long. So I think that maybe, and that would be fine with me. Let's not have that 2014 to 2016 Empire State Building type thing, tipping all over us. So believe me, I'm going to work as hard as I can at trying to secure some of that data, going all the way down sale barn by sale barn to see how many heifers compared to steers they had versus last year. But I will keep you posted. Seems like it should be the USDA's job, right? I mean,
yeah, any much of anticipation will be this January report to see what those numbers say. And I appreciate always you giving us your insight on that. I think there's optimism out there for the trade, and Rome wasn't built in a day, and cattle herds won't be rebuilt either in a day.
No, you're 100% right. And it'll depend on different regions. I think will probably take their time stepping into it a little bit. But yeah, we'll see. I still think at the end of the day, there's enough of these guys that are true blue cattlemen, which is what I love about them, that they're going to say, you know what? If I'm going to have calves around, I got to have cows around. And that's what I do. And that's what my dad did. And that's what my grandfather did. And so at some point, there's going to be some, I think, bottoming out of this number thing.
So let's look at the box beef. I mean, the grind that's been on there, what are you thinking in the demand side that's there for them right now?
An interesting visit with a couple of friends of mine here about a half an hour ago. We were talking about, supposedly we're going to have near record cattle on feed on this next report. Maybe we'll see. It depends on how big the placements are. Average weights are big, right? So then we're going so the guys that are bearish are going how in the world can we be this high? What does that leave? I would say it leaves demand, and demand has been not just good, it's been spectacular. And so that's part of the story here, without a doubt. How about choice select spread at nearly $38? Somebody wants these choice meat. Another parity here that I can't explain this. How can weights be this big and the grade be the other way? I mean, if you would think if weights were this big, we'd be having choice product hanging out of the sky, right? Yet we've got this huge premium in the choice. So either there's not as much of it as one would appear, and I think that's partly due to one of the things that people like to feed. There's a additive that people are feeding a lot of that changes yield, but also hurts grade. The other part of it is I think it just reflects the fact that people have demand for the higher end, the higher quality, the choice meats. So it's all there.
I wanted to talk about formula cattle and looking at Kansas. As the speaker above me is talking over me, I apologize. We'll give her a second.
Probably somebody from Kansas talking over top of you, right? I mean, it's like, okay, so you know me well enough, and hopefully your listeners and watchers, whatever you call it on here, know that I'm a negotiated cash guy. Okay, I believe that it's critical for the longevity and the life of our cattle industry that we negotiate for some cash cattle, and more than we are now. And so I keep this running database. Again, this intern helps me with that. I've got about 8 years worth of data that basically draws two lines: the number of formula cattle and cash cattle, and then the overall cash price. And you'll see that the bigger the number of volume of cash cattle traded, the general trend is that the cash cattle market goes up. Believe it or not. What a shocker, huh? And the other way is true too. So the last 2 weeks, at least in the 8 years that I've got data, we've seen more formula cattle than any other time in the last 8 years for those 2 weeks. Coincidence that the cash market's lower at the same time? I don't think so. But, anyway, the big guys in the South hate me for talking about it. That's fine. I don't care. It's data. So let's trade some cash cattle. Let's get current. Let's get these weights down. And I do see some indication that the weights are topping in the South, Texas and Kansas particularly. So we'll see if we get some follow through. It ought to. We're getting about to that time of year. We should be getting through these long-fed, farmer-fed calves.
And hopefully we can take all this information that's been compiled this week and last and build on it and get some momentum going in this cattle market again.
I think so too. Maybe I'm early. Maybe it's a couple of weeks away, but usually by the first week of December, I guess I like the prospect that the market rallies going into the holidays. Yeah.
And of course, we can't forget the importance of December 15th as well.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. How about a birthday present? I have these cattle up at about 195 cash or something like that.
There we go. What's the best way for folks to get a hold of you, Brad?
KKVTrading.com. You can learn all about us, or the phone number 712-722-0023.
Wonderful. Thanks for joining us. A quick reminder to folks, commodity futures and options do involve a substantial risk of loss, not suitable to all investors. And that's been this week's Cattle Call on the road at the Gateway Farm Expo in Kearney, right here on the Rural Radio Network.